And so, Ngozi, you're going to be first. If you can unmute yourself and introduce yourself to our listeners this afternoon. Before we go into questions, that would be super wonderful. Please go ahead, Ngozi. And I hope I've said your name right.
You did. Well done. I'm actually coming in from the UK. Yes, I am West African, but I'm coming from the UK.
Aha, but you live in the UK.
Yes, I am. I'm the vice chairperson for Commonwealth Business Women's Network, Nigeria. And also a manufacturer. So I operate in a male-dominated industry. So I am a manufacturer of office furniture. And then education, also the board chair of Strategic Women and Youth Institute. So basically, that's who I am.
Wonderful. Ngozi. We're going to talk a little bit more about what having the Commonwealth Chamber means, especially for business today. And of course, you have to give us some examples of what it's like in manufacturing, because you are correct. That isn't an area that has very many women in it. And especially if you are looking at the export space, that is even more rarefied air. So thank you. And I can't wait for us to get into these discussions a little further. You know, so you're exporting, right? You're exporting. One of the businesses that you have is actually to export African products to the US. Yeah. And on top of that, you're doing this manufacturing of the furniture. There in, you can tell us a little bit more whether that manufacturing is happening in the UK or whether it's happening on the continent, but certainly you have played in that export space. So could you tell us a little bit about that experience, and even, how did you, to be honest, if allow me to use this word, as somebody who's just started out in manufacturing, how did you get the courage to begin and to do so, especially for that export market? Ngozi, could you tell us a little bit about how you started?
Thank you, Angie. Nice to be here today. It's just, I'm going to put it together very quickly so I don't take up the whole time. So when I go through my words really fast, forgive me, everybody. That's because we don't have all the time today to say who Ngozi Oyewole is. She has too many skills packed in one. So office furniture for me is something that I've got a very creative mind and a very daring. I defy my doubts and I'm very daring. So I found myself just by chance, not necessarily, I had to be in the US with an organization in Nigeria called SMEDAN, the Small Medium Enterprise Development Organization of Nigeria. And so we had to exhibit. And I thought to myself, I also had a chance to be with women on boards at the United Nations. So they had a fireside chat. I always tell people, when you go anywhere, leave the problems around you and look for opportunities. So that's always something I've always had behind my mind. As soon as I got into the building, people were taking pictures and Ngozi was busy looking for opportunity. Somebody said, why are you going around? I said, let's see what we can get out of here. And she said to me, what do you think you're going to do? We're just going to come in and you're going to speak about gender. I said, no problem. We'll talk about problems women face, but I'm not going to go out of here without that. So I walked into the store. I looked around. I saw every country had something in their store, and I didn't see Nigeria. So I boldly smiled at the lady in a very nice way. And she was admiring my African outfit, which is what I would normally do. When I leave Nigeria for anywhere, I dress up as a true African woman. I don't wear what you're seeing now, So, and she said, oh, I love what you're wearing. I said, oh, that's nice, and all that. And I said, but we don't have any, so what do you do? I said, I'm into furniture. And then she said, oh, so what did you do in America? I quick, said what I had come in for. And I said, would you like to come in for my exhibition? And she said, yes. And that was it. She turned in, and that's the story. And so that is a little story of how I started sending things to America at the time. So what I would say to people is, like I said, seeking opportunity, making use of it, and knowing your product. So I said, I looked through export. How am I going to export? I had samples. I was very sincere. She said, oh, can I buy? And I said, no. When I signed in to come into America, I said there were samples. And so I'm not going to sell. So I think your integrity also puts you forward, and people want to do business with you when you're very sincere and you're upfront. So all the items she picked, there are quite a lot. And she said, no, this is a lot. It's about $3,000 worth. And you're asking me for free? I said, yes, because when I signed in the paperwork, I said it was all sample. So if you're keeping them, that by all means, go ahead. And the rest is
history.
It's history.
It's amazing. And to imagine that it was just having that gumption and that courage to say, you know what, we're going to have a conversation and I'm going to tell you about what it is that I do and what we have to offer. And, you know, that's just wonderful, because that is what we call courageous leadership. And you displayed that in so many ways. I like this one, what you said about leave the problems behind you and look for the opportunities, because as you demonstrated, those opportunities are there to be found everywhere. But, you know, you are also the vice president of the Commonwealth Business Network, right, in Nigeria. And what I would really like to hear from you is, you know, what are some of those, I guess, opportunities that this particular network brings to the table? And the reason I'm also asking that is because, you know, of course, the Commonwealth has the colonial history that it has, yeah? And so much has changed since the establishment of that Commonwealth. And there has also been discussion around, you know, is it still a relevant body when it comes to trade? And is it, or is it something that has been overtaken by different events and different affiliations?
Yeah.
What's your take on that, Ngozi?
We all know that the Commonwealth is an association of 56 countries with well-established trading relationship with partners that share a common language, democratic principles and rule of law, bilateral costs for trading partners in Commonwealth countries, and about average of 21% less. So the Commonwealth carries out research into trade policy to promote the trade and development interests of member states, especially small states, and the least developed countries. They bring countries together to discuss and agree on new global issues. Amongst Commonwealth countries, the EU has free trade agreements with countries like South Africa, Cameroon, Zambia, and the 12 Commonwealth members of the Caribbean states. Commonwealth has something it calls the Common Connect. That's what they use to make sure that the small states, you know, come together. And then members benefit from being part of that mutually supportive community of independent and sovereign states, you know, aided by more than 80 Commonwealth organizations. And the Commonwealth Secretariat, of course, we know it's a long, like you said, it's been there since 1965. It supports countries achieve development, you know. So they also develop viable strategies to revive and revitalize economies for the benefit and well-being of Commonwealth citizens to achieve the future we want, a future that leaves no one behind. Global and regional collaboration remains imperative. So they also established a Commonwealth Working Group, which provides an integrated advocacy strategy and solutions in addressing economic challenges. The Commonwealth Secretariat they work with Department of International Trade to highlight the significance of the Commonwealth, what they call the Commonwealth advantage. And then they show how it can be harnessed by business to expand trade, share familiar history, language, legal and administrative systems. So, you know, like all Commonwealth countries, we all speak English. So that makes it very easy to trade. They encourage cross-border trade, like digital trade, which involves all international trade in goods or services that are digitally ordered or delivered. They span an area of digital goods, digitally ordered goods, in and out delivered, and so on. So they also have their best practices, like online consumer protection, dispute resolution, market concentration, and competition on digital platforms and cross-border digital payments are all in place. So it's still very active. The Commonwealth, the advantage of the Commonwealth digital trade is the Africa and the digital delivery of creative content. You know how we have the Nollywood in Nigeria? That's a massive business. I think we're the highest over Bollywood in India. And then, so there are lots of activities that the Commonwealth countries are doing and encouraging. With Nollywood, that has cut across the whole world. And that's what the Commonwealth does. It gives you the platform to take off. CBWN Nigeria, which is an organization of the Commonwealth, is an approved organization. What it does is encouraging leadership according to the Commonwealth Charter, women in leadership, encouraging women to be out there, to be outspoken, to use their voice, and also the SDG Goal 5 of women empowerment. You have to speak for yourself. And the way we work is trade, talent. Women are able to trade across any Commonwealth countries. A lot has happened. The Equity Bank in Kenya is actually a Commonwealth project. I'm sure you don't know about that, but it's actually a Commonwealth project that Commonwealth used to reach out to businesses to start off. And today, we all know what Equity Bank is doing in Kenya, encouraging women, encouraging businesses. Those are Commonwealth projects that people may not know. And those things function through what you call, like I said earlier, Commonwealth Connect. So yes, the Commonwealth is still working. We also have the ICT service trade. And then look at Rwanda. Rwanda now, they have the freight forwarding service. So they give, is also Commonwealth. They give cheap airlines, cheap freighting services to intercontinental trade. So if you want to trade between Rwanda and any part of the continent, African continent through the AfCFTA, you get a reduced rate. So it's also a Commonwealth country. They also have the CHOGM, where you have the heads of government come together and they discuss bilateral policies on bilateral trade agreements. So yes, the Commonwealth is really working seriously to make sure trade is happening well. A lot of activities based on like the bilateral data in the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, that's the OECD, and the World Trade Organization. Those things are where the Commonwealth is still functioning so much. So in summary, Commonwealth countries leverage on digital technologies, they utilize trade agreements, they promote services, cooperation, improve connectivity to boost their trade. The Commonwealth advantage has helped to build, strengthen, sustain trading relationship, factors such as, like I said earlier, historical ties, familiar, legal, and administrative systems, the use of largely one language, and that's English, as a means of communication with the foreign partners, and large and dynamic diaspora underpin this advantage, which is particularly significant for trade in services. The Commonwealth advantage, if you ask me, if you don't know, it implies that Commonwealth member countries have an average of 19% lower trade costs in their bilateral trade than in trade with non-member countries. So on average—
That's quite a significant percentage.
Yeah, so on average, the bilateral trade costs between the Commonwealth country pairs are lower, to the tune of around 21% compared with the cost of trading with non-Commonwealth countries. So the trade cost advantage holds for both agriculture products and manufactured products. So, I know America has AGOA, but then the Commonwealth has been able to really put a lot together, and it's working. They've also been able to, we have what you call the Commonwealth, for CBWN, we have CA Africa. And the COO actually comes from Kenya, Nana Wanjao. She comes from, that's the COO for Commonwealth Business Women Africa. So what we've done is the 19 Commonwealth countries, every member state, the women have come together
Fantastic.
to form like a Pan-African organization where we actually do business together. So every year we move from one country to the other. So when that's happening, there's that cross-border, there's that cross-trade, there's that oneness, and that encourages trade. There's, you know, also we've been able to tackle issues like counterfeiting, which is mostly a big issue, where you have people flooding in the country, the continent, with fake goods and services, or fake goods. A lot of people bringing things from China. That now is being curbed because in Africa, we're beginning to be very, very self-sufficient and sustainable. We do things within our continent. Like I said, when I travel, I do not wear, I'm not being racist. I love my African prints. I love my hair in braids. I love to look very ethnic. It's easy to identify me. No, don't worry about the light skin. My mother is very light skin. My dad is as dark as a pot. I think I picked up the lighter skin. However, you know, you see it that we're ethnic. We're producing things within the country. If you look around right now, you find that it's a playground. Our dressing is almost blended. Everybody wears a headgear in most of the African countries. Business is going well. And I tell you, the biggest item I sold while I was in America then was the headgear, the turban. The turban. The lady didn't remember the furniture I showed her. What she remembered was the other things that I had brought, were little items that we did through our branding and stuff like that. So
that's beautiful.
That's my take on where the Commonwealth is.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Ngozi.
First of all, the product is a critical factor in deciding, for instance, your export market. You have to select a market, keeping the demand for your export product in mind. If you heard him, what he said was very, very clear. You know, and then the product should address the need and requirements of the consumer. You also need an export plan. If you're going to do anything across any continent, or like through AGOA or through the Commonwealth, you have to have an export plan, which is a business plan for selling internationally. You've got to know the rules. It should detail the decisions you've made based on your market research, your objectives, how you plan to achieve them, your export. It should show banks, investors, partners that are serious, and have realistic and achievable goals. So you have to have that structure in place. That shows you that you can maximize your products, export potential, identify your risk, minimize them, set out pricing strategy, present clear evidence for funding and finance, make choices and set targets using data. Data is very important. So what you have to have proper knowledge of your business. You can't achieve anything unless you're able to show the target market, how you're going to adapt your product. He talked about renewable energy. He talked about the climate. So let's say for any manufacturer, you have to think of what your raw materials, how you're going to source it. How does that affect climate change? You have to go with trend of things, market approaching, cost and pricing, funding and credit. How do you get paid? You travel. You have to have a travel plan, and then there's no business without risk. So you have to think of your business risk. Then you're ready to take off. But there's something I have never taken for granted when it comes to, especially my experience. He's talking about coffee. I'm talking about my experience and how I got into the export business. I mean, they're not different, but they're just different product lines. And there's something I always tell people, which is, it might look very little, but it's very useful, the power of social media. You take it for granted, but the old marketing mediums in import-export business only sent to limited people, so the conversation is just one way. On the other hand, on social channels, consumer and businesses have a two-way interaction. The import-export business can communicate with each other by answering online questions, working on strengthening bond, as well as, again, posting the content. You must first know your import-export business, like I said earlier. Target your customers. It's necessary you make a business account on platforms that your potential customer base uses so that they can be in touch with you, do proper analysis to determine the most used sites, and with a well-built plan, you can conquer them well. So these things are really, really important. They look very small, but they add up and they help you in your business. So coffee, yes. For me, in the furniture industry, there's no way you can carry a huge desk or table and then say you're flying it across to one country. But when you set it up as in a video, you do the video or YouTube, and they see your content and they have a proper outlay, they see what you're doing. Obviously, people are interested in what you're doing. And then you have to also look at what are the you have to look at the statutory requirements, regulations of the different countries. That's where the AFCFTA is been such a fantastic, it's coming on very well. It hasn't taken off totally, but I say there is hope for it, because what are we trying to achieve? A borderless trading, where we can go into South Africa, supply things, come out of there, and so on. And I don't think they've done badly, especially with their payment, PAPSS payment platform. So those are the kind of things that interregional, because you have to do interregional before you can think of doing the global business. I mean, I had a good laugh at what he said about the English coffee. It's a takeaway for me today. I'm never going to forget that speech. You know,
English tea. English
tea. I'm not going to forget that in a hurry. Very interesting.
Thank you for that, Ngozi. I like what you said about, you know, with the right use of technology, you can conquer the world. And you know, and that's really encouraging, because sometimes it can seem very daunting. You know, you look at some of the numbers that that Jaswinder just talked about. When you start to look at the size of the market that is out there and what's available, but you know, every little bit counts. And even if right now Kenya's third largest export is textile and apparel, and it's only 0.5, it's a sliver of the US market, but there's this huge opportunity that's still out there.
Yes, I think I didn't point out to you that the furniture was typical Nigerian local furniture of carved. They're not the regular furniture like you may be thinking. They're all very like carvings. The chairs that are the local ones we use in the villages, the recliner ones, the stools with animal prints on them, carvings on them. So they're strictly Africa, or proudly Nigeria, locally made branded furniture, not the regular ones that we're thinking of. So just to let you know that the branding of where the furniture was coming from was properly laid out, yes. So for you to be in the United Nations, you need to be able to showcase something that showcases your country. So the furniture that was out there were typical Nigeria branded furniture.
That's fantastic. And then that's what needs to be, that identity or that thumbprint, you know? It's like the way you were talking about African print, or even the Masai shuka. The minute you see it, you know where it's from, right? And so it's the same thing with the furniture that you're talking about. The minute anybody sees it, they'll know. They may not be clear which particular country it is, but they will know immediately that it is African furniture. And that that artisanal bent that is going into all the work that we do is something that we need to highlight and to showcase. We'll start with you, Ngozi. What would you, what's your parting shot to our listeners this afternoon?
It's been a pleasure being on this particular conversation. Very interesting. Thank you, Wangi. But I always tell everybody and every woman, especially because I'm a very strong female advocate when it comes to, he was talking about storytelling. Your voice is your superpower. Defy your doubts. Defy all odds. Go for it. When I walked out there, I went out looking for an opportunity and I got it and I ran with it. And I sat down and looked at where I am and used what I have as the head of Commonwealth and the women who are into various skills. Leading them is not a joke. And talking to them and telling them, fear, you need to conquer your fear. Yeah, in any way anybody puts the fear across to you, conquer your fear, defy your doubts, go for it, look for opportunities, and you're home and dry. Sell your talent, sell your skills.